or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Minds by Gabor Mate MD. What is its relation with genetics and family? What's really causing ADD? But how about a doctor who's having an ADD and who got children's having ADD? A best person to go and ask for it. So that is actually Gabor Mate. ADD is usually considered as something like a genetics. For a person having attention deficit disorder, mainly there are three things. That's first one is tuning out. Second option is impulsiveness. Is more impulsive and more aggressive person in that way to others. And third thing, a characteristics of ADD is hyperactivity. Your brain is working on multiple sweeping of plates. Like many things are happening at the same time. It's something like a soup of thoughts. Environment is acting on the genetics. His environment is working on it, and the brain is somehow working on a survival mechanism to switch on and switch off some things. So imagine a traffic signal and it is controlled by a policeman. But imagine this traffic policeman go on sleep. Every vehicle will try to enter to the intersection, or the movement will be collapsed considering no policeman there. So your prefrontal cortex is something like a policeman, a traffic policeman. And for ADD, that policeman is in sleep. How the brain develops ADD? Go and put it everything under genetics, which is called genetic fundamentalism. So contribution, for sure, genetics has a contribution to ADD. If mother has 8 children, then that simply means that you have 8 mothers. So environment makes the brain. Even you consider all the mammalian brain usually grows even after the birth. But the speciality of human brain, unlike other mammals, is that human frontal lobe will grow after the birth. So actually the brain is something like a complex super system of super systems. A horse baby will start walking the next day. But if you look at a human brain, your human baby, it is so much vulnerable and it is having so much growth after the birth, unlike any other mammals, by inspiring from the environment. So what is in the environment, that is getting captured and that is getting evaluated, studied and growing from that. It's not the sight of that mother which is creating that response in the child. Instead, we have something called orbitofrontal cortex, which is something behind the right eye, mainly tells about what to focus on. The neurons which fire together are wired together. Even the babies in the mother womb, whatever is happening, that umbilical cord connection is also taking that circuitry there. So what is anxious inside, that chemistry is telling lot of creations inside the neural physics. Before many generations, that information is also coded in the brain for sure, for the genes. But what to activate, what to not activate is based on the situation. When there is a negative factors affecting, like emotions of life, marriage, that affects the children as well. So nowadays, absent-mindedness is somehow being celebrated. If you're short span, even the reels, the shorts and such things, if you're absent-minded or if you're short-sighted, it is considered as something good. And we are very, attention span of our generation is actually constricting. So that's how the situation is there. So somehow that is a coping mechanism. In psychology, it's called dissociation. So it's like a coping mechanism nature give for emergency survival. It's something like a, especially in ADD, it is somewhere like a severe stress and like helplessness. With Marty Seligman, if you study psychology and all, you have that dogs and all similar things like severe stress and helplessness that is getting dissociated, and you go to and tune out. So brain don't want to just do something. Like imagine you have I don't want to consider brain as a computer, but imagine you have a computer or phone or something, give something to it which is too much overwhelming. What it'll do is it just goes stuck or to go crash. The conditions, even suppose your ancestors have ADD, if there is a proper care given or proper healing is provided, you can still solve that ADD problem. And it is not always written in the genetics. You can rewrite it somehow. You can heal it. So no action, because especially for ADD people, it's tell that hyperactivity is actually triggered by if there is no action, you feel like you are not alive. Autonomous nervous system has two parts, sympathetic and parasympathetic. So sympathetic is something like which consume energy, and parasympathetic is something like which preserve energy. If there is only sympathetic is working, that gives a situation where you will only spend the energy, but you should have rest also. Meaning of ADD traits. We live in a world where absent-mindedness is the new normal. The reels and shorts are important, but actually for ADD, that's not the situation. You have distress, chronic stress and helplessness, which is creating such a situation. So you are not born with attention and you're not supposed to be attentive always. You should have a selective ignorance. Your brain is developed in that way. As I mentioned, you're not supposed to capture everything around you. What is important is that what is important for your life and sustaining the life, that is going to be taken care by the brain. So ADD and healing. So parental attitude matters. So mammalian brain growth never ends. That's why we are telling like that. So we have a very much plastic brain. So somehow if you judge a person, if you overpraise a person, they will have a situation where instead don't keep a judgment, let them have their way of things like that. So as try to understand the stress and shame behind it and be with them, such people. Like a fish in a sea or a sheep in a big meadow, like let them wander. Let them be responsible. Let them be self-autonomous. That is actually a best solution for. There is too much parental control. They will feel vulnerable when there is no such a care and control. But instead, if you practice this autonomous thing, that will thrive creativity, responsiveness, learning, self-dependence, and all such things. So just looking for attention. You know that children seeks attention. So seeking attention is there because seeking attention is something related to the care as well. But if you look at another way, actually this children is doing most of the things automatically and they're trying to get attention. They have this stress and shame and anxieties and insecurities. That's all creating such a thing, especially for a children like ADD. So there is a will and counter will. So will is something from your side. Okay, you want something. But then there is a counter will which sometimes you cannot oppose. Okay, you have say your father or somebody counter willing, you cannot do this. And somehow that wins. That creates the same situation what we have in ADD. It creates a chronic stress and it creates a helplessness. So chronic stress plus helplessness equal to ADD. Say somebody, especially these ADD people have difficulty in working under some managers and all such people as well. Because they don't want to be controlled. And they mostly go and make their own company. And they tell that, okay, because I don't want them to be controlled. So best way to diffuse that counter will is to, as I mentioned, to give them their space. You don't have to make the children comply. Compliance is not necessarily parenting. Compliance is not required. But somehow there is some room for resistance. You don't have to love and care in such a way that there is not at all a no possible. Not everything. There should be some room for resistance there. So some level of control. So then encourage self-discipline. That's important. Okay, you can tell your child, okay, switch off the TV by 9 o'clock. But in another way, you can tell the same child, switch off the TV before you get your sleep. Don't watch TV in such a way that you will not get a proper sleep, you will not be able to perform better tomorrow. So that's somehow I think the end of the book. So let us meet us in the next book until we come across with the next book. Thank you for your all support. Feel free to comment, like, only if you feel it interested. Otherwise, wait for us. Thank you. If you enjoy this summary, like and follow us. We love to see your insights in the comment box. Subscribe.